Hello. Hi, Christo. How are you
Hi,
today?
Sandra. It's lovely to see you. We've got quite a sunny day here in Scotland, which is that we never hear those two words together.
I
Sunny in
love that. I
Scotland
love
is
that.
is
Sun
not.
and Scotland.
No,
Yeah.
never happens. Yeah,
Brilliant.
it's nice to
Brilliant.
see you.
Yeah, you too. And thanks for coming along today. So, we met, didn't we, through Insights? So we both train on Insights, and that's how we met. And I'm doing some podcasts and some YouTubes around young people and supporting them getting on the career ladder. And you've had a really, I'm just going to run through your background. So you've had a really fascinating career. You started your life as a RAF pilot. So,
Hmm.
which sounds amazing. You went to Fly B and were a training captain, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit of a
Yeah.
weird story, really, when when I reflect back on it, Sandra.
And now you set up your own business, the Black Box Approach, which I love that because it's linked obviously to aviation. So that's brilliant. And you specialize in different areas like mental health. Obviously, you've insights that you do,
Yeah,
and you do suicide prevention training as well. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's brilliant, brilliant to have you here today. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, so really, I suppose today it'd be really great just to talk about your experiences on the topics or in your career, really, and what we could then share with Well, it could be young people. Actually, it could be anybody that's out there that's looking for a
Yeah.
role at the moment. Because I know that the market actually at the moment is quite tough. So, so yeah. So from your perspective, yeah, your experiences really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, I've learned in these 43 years that I've been on this earth and become very grey. I clearly need uh, an appointment with some Just for Men. And I don't know whether it is 20 years of aviation, Sandra, that's done this, or whether
Yeah.
it's 4 children. But career-wise, for me, it's always been about knowing yourself, which I'm honest that I didn't really
Right. Yeah.
understand my
Yeah.
own identity, and doing something that you enjoy. I think
Yeah.
the pandemic and something, maybe that terminology that we want to never hear again. It taught many
Yeah.
people lots of things, but it taught me that, and as corny as this sounds, life is genuinely about the journey, and we do not know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day,
Mm,
and we can spend our whole
oh
time
yeah.
planning for it, and making sure that everything's right, and get down into the minutiae of making sure that we've got everything prepared for the career that we want and we think we're going to have, but you
Yeah.
just never know. So what I've learned is that it is genuinely about enjoying the now. So if I was to go
Right.
back to
Okay.
my studies, um even like the first photos of me, I always knew it was going to be in aviation. But if you'd asked me, 4 years ago whether I'd end up in suicide prevention, I would have laughed in your face and said, "What are you
Right.
talking
That's
about?"
interesting. So, did you always love aviation then? Is that like a passion of yours
Oh,
as
it
a
was
child?
absolutely one of the first. As the youngest of four boys, there are rarely any photos of the fourth child, let alone remembering our names. Yeah. But one of the first photos of me, I'm holding this kite, yeah, this kite string. You can see
Yeah.
me I'm in these little red wellies, and I'm holding this kite, like just obsessed. What it doesn't show is that the kite is stuck in a tree. Um, but there I am standing in this thing, and it was just everything, every waking moment, whether it was putting little action men on, throwing them out the window on parachutes, seeing if they would fly, or
Right.
rockets or aeroplanes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I was just determined. I was like, I'm going to fly airplanes. So when I threatened to
Wow.
leave school early to join the Air Force, my parents were like, nah, no chance. They were like, if you lose your medical, because you have to be, physically fit to
Of
be a
course. Yeah.
pilot, if you lose that, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, okay, so what do I have a passion for? I had a passion for building and fixing stuff in airplanes. So
Yeah.
I did try and I went to try and go to Bristol to study
Okay.
aerospace engineering, but
Yeah.
I got a C in Spanish.
Okay.
I just see you making the connection there. I wanted to do aerospace engineering, but I got a C in Spanish. So I didn't get in. All right.
All
And
right.
that's,
Okay.
oh, okay. Spanish, aerospace. What? I didn't get
What
in.
does that?
Where's the tie in there? And the tie in is, yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. So I came up to Edinburgh to study mechanical engineering, and for all those young people out there, and this is us talking to
Mm,
boost their confidence. I didn't
yeah.
enjoy it, All right,
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
sugarcoat that. I didn't enjoy it
Mm.
because all I
Mm.
wanted to do was fly planes. But I
Oh,
knew that
interesting.
it was a necessity. I had
Yeah.
to have a degree. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a really hard course. I studied really hard. And, I got through what I needed to do. But it was underlying under that was, oh, I don't really want to be an engineer. I want to fly planes. And it goes back to my
Mm.
original point. If you're going to choose a
Mm.
pathway, choose something you enjoy,
Yeah.
because otherwise, you might regret it.
Mm.
So I did mechanical engineering. I then joined the Air Force to fly planes, and it was like, yeah. And there was this. Yeah, I met my wife there. I tell this, but she wanted to be a pilot as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did. I joined the Air
Interesting.
Force. And that is when I found people talk about finding their jam. Yeah,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Have I just made up that phrase? I
No.
don't.
No. 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 I've
You
heard of
find your
that.
jam, and that was it. And I just can completely like I could be me. I could have I studied really hard to learn how to fly
Yes.
properly,
Yeah.
but it was just magic. And that's when I kind of like found
Wow.
myself. The Air Force, it turns out, there was a very short career in the Air Force, and that's when I
Yeah.
became a commercial pilot. And
Yeah.
that's where life was a bit slower,
Yeah.
and but it was just
Well,
magic. I could
I'm going to just go back. So I'm really
go.
intrigued when you first, because obviously you've done that training, you've done your studies, which did that get you into the Air Force then?
Um,
Or did
I
it
just
help your route, I suppose?
So what it did was gave me the springboard to be sponsored by the Air Force, so I didn't have to
I
pay for my
see.
fees. You
Okay.
did at the time to become a
Yeah.
commissioned officer as a pilot, you did
Yeah.
have to have a degree, so it could have been in anything.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay. That's, yeah.
but yeah, I don't. Yeah, it didn't have to be mechanical engineering.
No.
It could have
Okay.
been
And
anything else.
what I'm intrigued about is what was it like the first time you flew a plane on your own?
On my own, scary. I remember that. Absolutely petrifying. It's known as your first solo, and it's the moment where you taxi up to air traffic control. So you ask, yeah, what was it like the first time I went flying? Well, it gets to this moment where you may not have that self belief, but you've got this. But the instructor gets to a point where they're like, you know what, you're safe, you're good to
Yeah.
go. You taxi
Yeah.
over to the air traffic control. They
Yeah.
undo the cockpit, they get out. See ya.
Wow. Oh,
And
I've
it's like,
got the butterflies just thinking about it. And I've never
and it's
even.
amazing. You
Yeah.
taxi out,
Wow.
and it is probably the shortest 4 minutes of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You take off. All you're allowed to do is take off. You make a left or a right turn, depending on the wind, depending on the runway. You make
Yeah.
a circuit. It was at 800 feet. It was down over St Andrews. It turned left onto the base, onto the town. You get cleared to land,
Yeah.
and you do the safest landing you
Wow.
can do. Might not be pretty, but they say every landing is a safe landing if you walk away from it.
Right. Okay.
So
Excellent.
yeah, magical.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. So we
Yeah.
might have. So I'm going off a bit piste here, which is if anybody knows insights. Christo and I preference is sunshine yellow. So our conversations don't stay in a straight line, do they, Christo? So
No.
so we might have some people watching that are maybe that might be their plan to be a pilot or to go in the RAF. But what was the best? I don't even know if this is the right thing to ask in aviation. But what is the best plane you've ever flown?
What's the best plane?
Yeah.
I've had my hands on a Tornado F3.
Right.
It is one of the old fighter jets of the Air Force. This is back in
Ah,
1995.
okay. Yep.
And I had one of the most amazing weekends of my life. Having the opportunity to go down to the Royal International Air Tattoo down in Fairford and going to
Wow.
support the display aircraft, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Doing a loop at 30,000 feet, going faster than the speed of sound past Mach
Yeah,
1,
yeah.
and just this
Yeah.
grin,
Wow.
this amazing grin,
Wow.
that lasted
Wow.
lasted a lifetime. But yeah,
Yeah.
the Tornado
Oh,
F3,
I love
absolutely.
that. I love that. That's so fascinating. Well, my dad and my brother were always, my brother still is, love planes, but
Yeah.
so I've been sort of dragged to many a air show. So
Do we
I
have
should
to?
know more than what
Yeah.
I do. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Brilliant,
can't remember
brilliant.
what your original question was, Sandra. This is what happens with Sunshine Yellow,
The,
isn't it? You're
we
asking me
just,
about my
well,
career and how on earth.
I was just how
Yeah,
you got to wait, and
yeah,
so
how I
then
got.
you done your the RAF, then you became a commercial pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Flybe, the purple ones. We were known for probably 12 years as Flybe Maybe because we
Right.
couldn't
Okay.
always pay our fuel bills or have the passengers in the right
Ah.
place. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it was magic. I
Was
became a
it?
first officer, and quite
Yeah.
interestingly, I think if you'd met me then, you wouldn't have known that I led with Sunshine Yellow. There was a
Really?
lot more of Earth Green then, a lot of more
Ah.
introversion. And I think it comes back to, what we're trying to talk about here on this chat is helping people understand that they've got to understand yourself first. And I had to find my
Yeah.
way within that new role. It was less
Mm.
black and white than it
Yes.
was as a military pilot. It
Yes.
was
Yeah.
much more about people working as a team rather than
Yeah.
this gung ho maverick. Much
Mm.
more of a sense of a community. So I was the first officer, and then I became a captain, and then I became a training captain. So I was teaching people how to fly, and quite
Yeah.
often I was given the students that maybe were struggling with a bit of confidence.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
if you wanted me to talk about the intricacies, yeah, the intricacies of an
Yes.
engine
Yes.
or
Yeah.
international air law, not me.
No.
If
No.
you want to help
No.
nurture someone, maybe bring on
Yes.
their confidence and that self-belief, I'd just kind
Yeah.
of take them under my
And
wing, excuse the pun.
and enthusiasm, I would say as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because when you're having to learn, so if you've got somebody that's enthusiastic and passionate about what you're doing, then it just comes across, doesn't it? And you feel like that person is, I don't know, invested in you, I suppose.
completely. Especially in a very small, if you're in the flight deck, that community is you for 12 hours of that day, and you've got to be prepared to flex with the way you communicate,
Yeah.
and you've got
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create a comfortable environment. And the
Mm,
work that
mm.
I do now, and particularly in suicide prevention, I cannot go in there into a training course just leading with this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
really mindful of the audience and what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so it's about, someone joining a new workplace is we talk about psychological safety, but it
Yes.
genuinely being a place where people
Mm.
can be themselves, and they're going to
Yeah.
learn, and they're going to accelerate, and they're going to become highly reliable, or a high performing individual when they
Yeah.
feel when they feel like they're comfortable there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was really
Yeah.
important to me.
So I suppose what you're saying is really, like, because they sound like really different jobs, that you had to
Yeah.
almost then like understand yourself about what you needed for this other job. Not every job is the same, and you need to adapt and to learn as you go along.
hmm Completely. And it
Yeah,
was it was getting to know other personalities as well.
yeah,
Working in a very
yeah,
close community
mm,
there. We have the pilots at the front of the aircraft and the cabin crew who do the most amazing, wonderful job and get no respect for it whatsoever.
yeah,
Quite
yeah.
often I had this phrase of, "Oh, you're just a biscuit slinger." Oh,
Oh, that's not. Yeah,
oh no.
yeah,
And it was,
yeah.
they do an
And
amazing job.
they do. They do. And you've got people on there that are stressed and that don't like flying. You do know what I mean? And all those the things, you're all in a contained area for how many hours?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
And part
yeah.
of
I
that,
agree with you on
it
that.
starts at the very beginning of the day. We'd
Mm,
always brief as a crew. So the
mm,
pilots and the cabin crew brief as a crew, and we'd run a scenario. A worst case
yeah,
scenario.
yeah,
What would happen today
yeah,
if? And
yeah.
basically you get an idea of the people.
Mm,
If you've never worked with them, we have
mm,
standard operating procedures in so many organisations, but we've
yeah,
then got this sense of, right, we've got a common language. We're
yeah.
all here. You don't join aviation, and unless you're a little bit
Yes,
weird.
yeah.
A little bit weird. Maybe, I'm gonna get some I
Uh,
might get cancelled for that. But you don't get out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning
yeah,
and go out to an
no.
aircraft to de-ice it and then
Mm,
hold bags of passengers sick. You don't do that unless you
no.
love that job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you've
That
then got
is
this
a real
common
passion. That's a real passion, isn't it?
you've got this common language
Mm,
of how we do things.
yeah,
How we do things when we're working well, but also we have standard
yeah.
operating procedures
Mm,
for when things aren't going so well,
yeah,
so we know what
yeah,
to do.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, it was
yeah.
magic.
Excellent. And then you then set up your own company, so which you're doing, which is where you are at the moment.
Yeah. So a part of this whole the reason I use insights and do the other work that I do is that there was a catastrophic redundancy. It was like fireworks. It was like
Right.
it
Okay.
was nothing I had ever expected. And I'm honest about this.
Mm,
Mental health for
mm,
me was not a
yes. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It was yogurt and yoga. It was Pilates and lattes,
Right.
and it was never
Okay.
going to affect me.
Yeah.
Um, and then I get made redundant, and my world became very dark very, very quickly.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
it was for myself, a complete
Mm,
loss of identity.
right. Yeah.
Because I didn't see because I couldn't fly aeroplanes anymore.
Mm, mm,
And it,
mm,
comes to us this really serious note is that I really want to encourage anyone that is listening or watching this to understand that you are completely unique and you are not your job role or your job
mm.
title. And
Yeah.
for 20
Yeah.
years, I was Christo, the pilot.
Mm.
And when I couldn't do that, it
Ah,
caused a lot of internal distress and pain. And
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what took me into the world that I work in now,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
helping people
Yeah.
understand themselves,
That
not
does.
just so they can understand themselves, but how they can understand other people
Mm.
and be able
Yeah.
to reach in to support
Yes.
them.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that. And if you were then sort of, so if we're thinking about people that are leaving uni or college or whatever, and they're starting in their roles, what sort of tips would you give them around that? Do you know what I mean, to support them? Because there is it's quite a change, isn't it, going from study into work with what and then that added pressure of everything else. So is there anything that you would say would be a tip or
Yeah, absolutely. I would make every bit of effort to get comfortable with myself and
yeah,
to
hmm,
understand myself. Most
yeah,
importantly, knowing how, when you are going through those challenges of maybe job applications or exams or all those
mm,
things we've got to do,
yeah,
is knowing how I respond or you respond under pressure.
yes, yeah,
Understanding what I call in the world of mental health is our stress signature.
right,
Knowing
okay,
that maybe
yes,
if you wake up in the morning and you find your jaw is tight, maybe it's because you've
mm,
been grinding your jaw and that's part of the fight
mm,
response. If you find that your
okay,
tummy, you've got loads of digestive issues going on, maybe that is
yeah,
part of that's your body trying to protect itself.
mm,
So
yeah,
understanding ourselves and how we respond to stress, so that when it does
yeah,
happen, we can go, "Ah, okay, I've got to do something about this now, because
ah,
we don't,
yeah,
that's when we become unwell." So knowing
yeah,
ourselves, knowing how to spot those stress signs really early, and your body will give you
mm,
clues. It's not mumbo jumbo.
yeah,
It's science.
yeah,
Knowing,
yeah,
understand what your unique stress signature,
mm,
and understanding that whatever profession you go into, we are we are social beings. Whether you have a preference for introversion or extroversion, we like to feel connected, and
mm,
understanding that connection is not a personality trait, it's a
mm,
skill you can practice. So getting really
yeah,
comfortable with ourselves
mm,
makes it much easier to connect with people. So understand yourself, know what stress looks like and how it manifests at you in self and you, and practice just having
yeah,
conversations with people,
mm,
and being comfortable in that. So yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'd say to
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really good advice. And if you think back, and if I think back even like to my career, some of the things you say there, and you think, oh yeah, and when you understand yourself, it is easy. You see those signs, don't you? And you recognise it, so you can turn it around, can't you?
Yeah. It all boils down to, the reason why you and I have connected is this
Yeah.
self-awareness and understanding
Yes.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
know that, it means, it can make a massive difference. Like,
Mm, mm.
there's this joke, Sandra, you say, how do you know there's a pilot in the room? Because they'll tell you, yeah. It's like the
Right.
ego,
Okay.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
ego walks in before
Ah.
before they do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the analogy I use with understanding ourselves is like we have what's known in aviation as the 1 in 60 rule. And if you
Right. Okay.
travel for 60 miles and you are 1 degree off course from where you should be, let's say you're
Yeah.
trying to head north to the North Pole, and you have 1 degree correction, and you make a tiny little change to that course. After
Yeah.
60 miles, you will be 1 mile off track. And so the tiny little
Wow.
changes that we make, when we communicate with other people, it can make a
Yeah.
massive difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just about making
So
those as
that's
you
that.
go through life. If this doesn't work or that doesn't work, just make a tiny
Mm,
correction, stick with it, and you can make a
mm,
massive difference over time.
mm. I love that. That is because if you go, yeah, that's such a great way to explain it, isn't it? Because if you're just going in one way and it's not right, do you know what I mean? And just a tweak can make all that difference.
Yeah. Just the way,
That's a
even
great
like
bit of
I talk
advice.
about briefings, yeah. So
Yeah.
often I've seen briefings in organisations. Someone gives a brief about a task they're going to do today, or I'd see it with other aircrew, and they go, right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go from here to Lanzarote, blah 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 blah. And
Yeah.
we go, any questions?
Yeah.
Now, what is the answer to that? No. Of course, everyone says no because they don't want to look like a fool. If they don't know the answer, they haven't been listening, or maybe their mind is somewhere else. So rather than
Yes.
that question of any questions, I'd always ask, what questions do you have? And then you give someone a permission to go, oh, yeah, I have
Yeah.
got this question, and now it's okay for me to ask it,
Yeah.
rather than going,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to look like an
No.
idiot, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to say anything.
And again, that is a great tip, isn't it, to any leaders out there who might be listening, or do you know what I mean, or anybody who has teams of people, because actually, you know, that is what you say, isn't it? Have you got any questions? And like, you know, most people go, no, don't want to ask anything. So just turning that around is, yeah, that's great. I love
It's
that.
just a really simple reframe that actually gives people permission. Or, you know,
Yeah.
people, you know, you see someone and we all go, how are you? You're right. And we do this with our head, don't we? We go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because we want them to say yes.
Yes.
Give them
Yeah.
permission.
And everyone will say yes, won't they?
Of
They'll
course
go,
they
yes,
will.
yes, I'm
Or,
fine, I'm fine.
and
I'm
there we
fine.
go. Unfortunately, it's very British of us. If we're going to, you
Yeah.
know, this goes into the world of talking about suicide and mental health in particular. But
Yeah.
if we're going to engage someone in a conversation, ask them a question they can answer. If I say to you, "How are you?" Well, what am I asking? I'm asking about your bunions. Am I asking about your physical health, your mental health, your financial well-being? Well, the answer is I'm fine because I've not asked you a question you can answer. How about? How was your morning? How are you today? Or how was your evening? Or how was your Netflix binge? Let's give people
Yes.
questions they can actually answer.
Because I suppose then when you start to answer them, then you start to open up a little bit as well. And then it's that sort of, you know, instead of just going, oh, I'm fine, and then walking off, you said to me, how was your Netflix? I'll be like, oh, this. Oh, but maybe this was like a bit uncomfortable to watch, you know?
Yeah.
It's that,
And
isn't
it's
it?
as simple as that. It's just,
Yeah.
if you're going to bother asking, how are you,
Mm.
really mean it. Or don't bother.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a
Exactly.
waste of
Yeah.
your
I love that.
space. Waste of oxygen.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for that. So, what I'll do, Christo, is I will put your details in the bottom. So, if anybody wants to get in contact with you about your business and what you provide, I'll put all your contact details in there. Is there
Thank you.
anything else that is like burning that you want to say before we?
No, not at all. It's just been
No?
lovely to chat. You know, I think we often, when we communicate with people, we're often looking, you know, that we're trying to perfect a message
Yeah.
or perfect,
Yes.
and it's not, for me, it's not, it sounds corny, but it's not about perfection. It's about connection, and it's the fact that we do. So just be mindful of that, and just
Yeah.
maybe just think before you speak sometimes.
Yes, yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, and it's not everything's perfect, is it? As you know,
Yeah.
because you tried to join earlier, and I'd made a right muddle of it. Do you know what I mean? So we're not perfect, are we? We
Yeah.
have to, you know, that's life, isn't it? Sometimes. So
And just let's not try and pretend, you know? It's like
yes,
if you're
yeah,
going for a job interview or for a new role, as
yeah,
difficult as it sounds, just be you, because that is much easier
exactly.
than putting on a facade of something you're not.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, and then getting there and thinking, I really don't fit in
yeah.
this team,
Oh,
or you
yeah.
know, or the environment. So yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, excellent. Right, lovely. Thank you very much for your time today. And as I say, I'll put Christo's detail below. Thank you very much. If you like the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any future uploads of Career Voices.